Well, Dr. Forbes, thank you for joining me in this conversation.
Pleasure.
In many ways, it's a retrospective homiletical reflection on a sermon you preached in 1977 on Father's Day in Duke Chapel. And that sermon was called Let's Forgive Our Fathers. And as I listened to that sermon, there's a great, strong theme that's prevalent around the idea of forgiveness. And if you can remember and look back to that day, I'm wondering why you had such a great emphasis on forgiveness on Father's Day, and why forgiveness is important, and why is it so hard? Could reflect a little bit.
You know, I remember that day well. The day when I preached, and it was during Founders Day, and it was Father's Day. But I could not come and speak on Father's Day without recalling that when I graduated from Howard University in 1957, I had applied to Duke University for possible MDiv studies here. And I got a letter back that said, "We do not accept Negro students, nor do we intend to do so in the foreseeable future." But this was 77.
Right.
Isn't that amazing?
Right.
I
20
graduated
years.
in 50, so 20 years later,
Wow.
I'm preaching Founders Day. What spirit should I bring? Anger for that initial rejection? Or had I grown to the place, or had I reached a level of maturity where my presence was not to spend time complaining about the indignities of the past, but to be a representative of the Spirit of the Christ? If I chose to do the latter, clearly my spirit would not be castigation, condemnation, vilification. It would be forgiveness. So it was very natural for me to know that whatever my sermon was going to be, that the overall spirit would be forgiveness. Then I would be a representative not of my hurt from the past, but of my hope for the future.
And you know, in that sermon, you sort of play with the idea of forgiveness and of the fathers, biological fathers, you being a father, also the founding fathers of the nation, all these multiple layers of fatherhood. And when you were speaking about the founding fathers of the nation, you talked about, and maybe these are my words, respecting them, but yet they were also in need of forgiveness. And you mentioned slaveholding, Christians, these founding fathers who had slaves, etc., and that history of historical slavery. What was, with your own history with Duke, right, the story you told, and in that particular setting, I was only 3 at the time in 1977, so I wasn't here, in Duke Chapel at that time to speak about the history of slavery and the issue of race relations and racism. And what was that like? What were you trying to convey to those who were the hearers on that Sunday?
Do you know, that question calls for this response. If we could ever get people to imagine what the dream of the Creator was, and to decide to do all they could to help fulfill that dream, rather than to be the occasion of a nightmare to the Creator, oh, what a wonderful world we would have. That's it. That's it right there. In what way is the world as we shape it, a nightmare to the Creator who made it. And what would our work be if we decided one day, God's been so good, let's stop creating a nightmare for God. And let's do what we can to help God experience the creation so that God could say, now that's what I had in mind.
Where does this, so this idea of a dream, God's dream, this impulse toward hope that I sense in you, you're a harbinger of hope in so many ways, as one who has crossed so many different kinds of borders, denominationally, racially, etc., theologically. Where does that come from? Because even at the telos of your sermon, at the end of the sermon, you have this beautiful phrase that in many ways could be the telos of your own ministry and life, the ecstasy of reconciliation.
Yes,
Where does this come from? Out of your own mind and life. How and then how do you help others move into that direction of this wonderful hope?
But you know, I don't know at what point in my life it became clear. But at some point, my theological evolution led me to think of God, obviously, according to the usual attributes of God. But one emerged at the top. And this, I am not a reductionist, but if you ask me to say what one thing would I offer as a kind of like description of God, without dismissing all that I learned in the theological books, I would say, for me, God is ultimate relationality. And if that's the case, if that's who God is, that in God all things that are co-inhere, all things that are bound together, held together, called together, since God is ultimate relationality and wants to bring stuff together that's scattered, disparate, strewn hither and yon, that I picture God every time something that's been alienated from its counterpart. When in thermonuclear dynamics, when one molecule that actually belongs to another get together, I think of that as a moment of ecstasy in God, who is ultimate relationality. When black folks overcome whatever it is in them that has alienated them from white people, and white people overcome whatever it is in them that made them imagine that they were not a part of the other. When they finally come to an aha moment, we are more alike than we are unalike, as Maya Angelou says. When we understand that, see, God's smart in this regard. What God delights in, God delivers delight to those who participate in it. So therefore, when we who are alienated one from another find our fundamental union of being, God sprinkles the stardust of delight on it.
It's such a an eternal message in so many ways. I mean, we're thinking about 1977, and here we are in 2019.
Yeah, yeah.
And this word of hope and reconciliation seems to be so timely and needed.
Oh, so needed. So needed.
And so that's a text, a particular story, and the theme of forgiveness from 1977. And that was a particular day and time at Duke University Chapel, in a particular place in the national climate. And we are in a particular place and time in this nation and world. Is there anything, as you reflect on that sermon and some of the themes, even what you discussed, is there anything that you might say differently today or nuance that message for today's audience? If you were in Duke Chapel now on a Sunday morning to preach from those same passages, what would be the message? Forgiveness
it comes as a relief to people who have been burdened by guilt. I want them to do more than just have that momentary relief. I want them to recognize that that momentary relief for having the shame of their past misdeeds set aside, that ain't nothing when compared to entering into the matrix of sustained relationality in love and truth and justice. I would say to them, you're going to be forgiven. Nobody's holding anything against you. But oh, what I really wish for you, that you could enter into the joy of our Creator. And that joy comes when we help to shape a world right now more to conform to what God had in mind the first day of creation. The joy and delight that you would get would make you wonder what took you so long.
I want to give you the final word. As you think about preaching today, young preachers, older preachers, what do you want the preachers of today to remember as they stand in the pulpits of America and other parts of the world?
Well, except you become as little children, says Jesus. So I want to answer you this way. I have a grandbaby, and when I first held her in my arms, I had the impulse to sing a song to her. And what I would wish preachers across this nation to do is to see all of us as children in the arms of God, children in the process of becoming. And that I would like for their ministry to aid in bringing to maturation all of us who are children of God. And when my little grandbaby, I used to hold her in my arms, and I would sing this song to her. I made heaven so happy today, receiving God's love and giving it away. When I looked up, heaven smiled at me. Now I'm so happy, can't you see?